welcome everyone for today's session, which is themed Procurement Success from Tender to Deal Closure. And we'll be doing the session in collaboration with our partner Safaricom. And our speaker for the day will be Emily To, who's the Supply Chain Operations Lead from Safaricom PLC. So we invite you to join us today in our conversation, and our social media handles are as shown on the screen. So the conversation will be going on both in the session and also on all on our social media platform. So feel free to engage in our conversation today, and just share what your learnings are in the session. If you have any questions, feel free to drop the questions as we continue in the chat box. We'll be having a question and answer session, which will be taking all those questions that have been shared, and we'll be just providing the answers to those questions. So to start us off today is just the program outline. We have the participants briefing, which we've already started, and then the next session will be just doing a brief introduction of Invest in Africa, and then the speaker's introduction, which is be followed by the speaker's presentation, and then the question and answer, and then we'll have a vote of thanks from one of our colleagues from Invest in Africa. So welcome. My name is Frank Mwema. I'm the Biashara.now platform manager at Invest in Africa. So just to give you a quick outline, please kindly just introduce yourself using the meeting chat box. Just provide your name, your organization, designation. Feel free to share your website so that people can be able to see what you do in terms of you as an organization, and also share with us where you're joining us from. Feel free to post your questions and comments in the meeting chat box, and or during the question and answer, you will have time to raise your hand, and then we'll allow you just to ask your question to the speakers directly or to Invest in Africa. And then at the end of the session, kindly look out for the feedback link, which will be posted in the meeting chat box. The main aim for the feedback link is just to ensure that we get to see how the session was and get to just improve the next sessions that we'll be having. So welcome everyone. So I'll just be doing a brief introduction on Invest in Africa, and then after that I'll be introducing our speaker. So just a brief introduction about Invest in Africa. So Invest in Africa is a Pan-African private sector-led initiative working with the mission of empowering enterprises to create sustainable jobs. So we've convened a rich network of diverse stakeholders who share a common mission to empower micro, small, and medium enterprises to create sustainable jobs. So as you can see on the right, we have just a map of the different stakeholders that we work with. So we work with corporate partners, buyers, financial partners who support our SMEs in terms of access to finance. We have consultants and delivery implementation partners. So consultants really come in terms of providing different mentorship and coaching sessions to our SMEs. And also we have the SMEs who are the key stakeholders in terms of the activities that we do. We have different development and advocacy partners who we work hand in hand also to support in the mission of empowering SMEs. And then we also collaborate with different government and government agency, mainly by just supporting SMEs, providing different inputs when it comes to policy development for SME support that really support in terms of empowering SMEs to do business in a friendly environment. So we believe that MSMEs are the drivers of the socio-economic growth and leverage on our flagship platform, Biashara.now, to collaboratively enhance their access to skills, market, and finance. So we have a digital platform where I believe all of you are members of the Biashara.now platform, which we work collaboratively just to ensure that we deliver our key flagship opportunities to our SMEs, mainly through the three key pillars, which is access to skills, markets, and finance. So our vision as Invest in Africa is to be the leading network for accelerating trade and investments with small and growing businesses in Africa, which is also in our mission is to empower enterprises to create sustainable jobs by improving access to skills, market, and finance. And our main purpose is to create prospering African economies through sustainable development. So how do we make our impact? And as I've said before, we have our flagship program, which is the Biashara.now platform, which is a digital platform where people join the platform to access all these different opportunities. And through this, we make our impact through our three main pillars: access to markets, access to skills, access to finance. And when it comes to access to markets, we have our online platform connecting our buyer partners with credible and local MSMEs. So as SMEs who join the platform, they go through a session of just being credible by just they go through a vetted process to ensure that all SMEs are operating according to the required quality standards by our suppliers and our buyers. So we register and validate MSMEs who supply products and grant them to coordinated access to markets by integrating them into the supply chains of our buyers. So currently we have over 5,000 MSMEs registered and including more than 1,500 smallholder farmers. So we work with MSMEs who do business, the normal kind of business we expect, but also we have a support for our farmers who also we consider them as also SMEs on the platform. So this session is basically going to look at the access to market part where we have different partners who post opportunities on our platform and SMEs apply for them. So that's the main aim for our today's session. We also have different access to skills, and we also from within the Biashara.now platform, we've been able to create a Biashara Academy, which is basically a knowledge hub with relevant MSME toolkits and best practice guide to MSME's resilience and growth. So within the toolkit, within the academy, we have different resources that help our SMEs to be resilient, not only resilient, but also to grow in their business. So we have different training materials that are available for all our SMEs who are part of our platform. We also have IS capacity building interventions and which are designed to improve MSMEs competitiveness and scale them up through training, coaching, mentorship, and matchmaking and exchange programs. So we have different coaching sessions that most of you have gone through, different mentorship sessions, trainings like the ones we are having today. So we look at what are the challenges that our SMEs are facing, and then we bring in the right people in the room to ensure that we cater for those needs. And then when it comes to access to finance, so we leverage on our partnerships to facilitate MSMEs preparedness to access finance as well as to create necessary financial linkage to grow and scale our enterprises. So access to finance has been a key pillar in terms of supporting SMEs, and we don't only facilitate that access to finance, but we also train our SMEs to be ready in terms of when you're getting that access to finance, you get that money and you're able to use it in the right way. So that's why we have our investor readiness program, which supports informal business to become bank ready and to begin the journey of building the credible financial track record necessary to meet the current and their future financial needs. So in terms of our areas of focus, we have 5 key thematic areas of focus that we are working on as for this year. And the first key thematic area is disaster risk management, and whereby we are championing an all of society approach towards a holistic view of disasters and driving the shift disaster in response to disaster management. So through the different periods that we've had from COVID, seen different kind of disasters, whether it's health wise, whether it's natural disasters. So that's why we are really focusing to ensure that our SMEs thrive through these disasters and through that thematic area of focus. And then we also have the number 2, which is agriculture and food. So that's is done by driving the growth and scale of SMEs that contribute to sustainable food systems and food security. And as you've seen from the different stakeholders that we have on the platform, we have a number of farmers who are within the platform. So also farmers get an opportunity to be contribute to the economy of the country. And as as you've seen, agriculture is a big area of focus in both the incoming government and the previous government, so which is a key contribution to our thematic focus. And then we also have gender equality and social inclusion. So by driving sustainable development, by fostering inclusion and marginalized groups, so youth, women, persons with disabilities, and economically marginalized in the enterprise growth and prospering of the economy. So we try and ensure that we are inclusive in terms of supporting everyone who's doing business, and we support them regardless of the challenges that they're having or their situation. So being inclusive by just bringing everyone in the room, just by giving them equal opportunities for them to thrive. And then we also have environmental sustainability and climate action. So we are championing transition of enterprises towards adoption of environmentally sustainable practices. And currently we have a program that we are running with our partner, which is the World University of Canada, which is really supporting environmental, social, and governance sustainability. So some of the SMEs are within the program, and for those who are not within the program, there's also an opportunity for a parallel program that is currently going to start, and it will be looking at different aspects of environmental, social, and governance within the business, and to ensuring that the business is sustainable. And also we have infrastructure development by just empowering the development of resilient production structures and systems to enhance MSME value through industrialization and value addition. So those are the five main thematic area of focus for Invest in Africa that we are currently focusing on. And through this thematic area of focus, we have different trainings, coaching, mentorship activities that will be currently ongoing. So feel free to reach out to see where you can just be part of, just by looking at, just feel free to log in to biashara.now. The link will be shared on the chat box, just to see what projects are currently ongoing, what training is currently ongoing for the different thematic and areas of focus, and how you can be part of it. So that's the key thematic area of focus for Invest in Africa. So in terms of impact to date, so we have developed a socio-economic impact model to assess and understand how our work benefits local economies, and the model focuses on the economic value added and jobs created through our work in Kenya. So it's important, as we continue to support our SMEs, we continue to measure our impact so that we can be able to share that impact to the rest of the members in the network, so that they can see what value they can get by being just members of Invest in Africa. Sorry. So within that impact, we've been able to support 83,420 jobs. And then we've been able to just to onboard more than 5,000 suppliers on Biashara Now platform. We've been able to train over 7,000 SMEs in different aspects of business. And within that, we've been able to support 9.5 million US dollars in terms of the finance that has been accessed through Invest in Africa. So as I've said, Invest in Africa is a pan-African organization, and our markets are currently in Kenya, Ghana, Senegal, and Mauritania. So that brings us to the end of our introduction to Invest in Africa, and I'm delighted today morning just to introduce our speaker for the day. Our guest speaker is Emily To, who is the Supply Chain Operations Lead in Safaricom. Emily is a supply chain expert with 15 years of experience in the public and private sector, with a strong focus on service industry, cutting across telecommunication, energy, and retail industry. So this experience has been enhanced by a strong academic profile as a certified procurement expert, gained from the Chartered Institute of Purchasing and Supply in the United Kingdom. So she has demonstrated a track record of delivering significant business value attributable to the balance sheet, and is highly competent in all areas of the supply chain, with a strong focus, with a strong African experience, having worked in three regions within the African region, that is Kenya, Uganda, and Nigeria. So I'd like to, it's a special honor just to invite Emily to the session, just to take us through her presentation. And feel free as Emily continues to do her presentation. If you have any question, kindly drop your question in the chat box. My colleagues from Investing will be able to pick those questions. And as we go into the question and answer session, we'll be able just to answer all your questions. Thank you so much, and karibu, Emily.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for that introduction. Such a pleasure to be here today. And I'm so privileged that I get to speak to business owners and CEOs of their companies. And I can see we are quite a number on the call today. We will have a short conversation in terms of taking you through the presentation in the context of Safaricom, which is a private organization. But I will be happy to take questions even as we end the session so that we can answer to the areas of your pains and also so that we can empower you with the knowledge that you need so that you can succeed even as you go through your tendering process, even as you go through growing your organization, even to be able to participate in organizations like Safaricom and the others in similar industry or different industries. And secondly, also because I see a lot of you are joining from across Kenya, which is very good. You should be able to then do business in the counties, to do business with the county governments, to do business with the national government, and also to do business amongst yourself, because that is where it can begin and grow. So I will be taking you through this particular topic, the Procurement Success 101. And 101 is just to say, we'll share insights here and there on areas that you can improve, areas that you can watch out, even as you prepare to tender into the different organizations. Thanks, Frank. If we can go to the next slide. I'll be covering five topics, and one is just to introduce what is procurement, which ideally I think you are very clear about. I will take you through the pre-qualification requirements. I've picked the context of Safaricom. However, this cuts across many organizations when we compare. I will take you through also the tendering process. What are the critical things that you need to look out for so that you can really be ready and do a good job? And then I'll take you through the awarding and contracting. Once you have tendered and you're given an award, what should you do to make sure that you deliver, to make sure that next time the organization can give you work? And then last one is once now you've been awarded, you have the contract, how do you ensure that you perform and you perform to the standards that the organization require? If we can go to the next slide. All right, so this first slide is just what is procurement. And generally, every time somebody is asking, umesupply mahali? Do you, umeona hiyo tender? Did you check the newspaper? Did you check the website? And all that is conversation that starts with procurement. Organizations procure goods and services typically for purposes of the business. Like Safaricom, they would procure services of cleaning services to make sure that the facilities are clean. They will procure contractors to make sure that we are able to put sites in the different areas in the organization. So that is procurement. And it is in that context where you have large organizations buying, small organizations buying, SMEs organizations are always buying. And you see, that is where you spend money. And where you spend money, it's important that there's a governance in place. That's why you find organizations have very strict procedures for tendering process, because you find most of the value for the business goes through the procurement function. And in terms of overview of that process, to be involved in a procurement activity, number one, you need to be pre-qualified. So you find every now and then organizations put in the newspaper that these categories are available for pre-qualification. So you need to pre-qualify. That means you get shortlisted into the database of that organization. Some organizations don't do selective tendering. Hence, you will find their tenders are in the newspaper and anybody can participate in it. But more and now you find many organizations are doing selective tenders, meaning they want to vet first the service providers through pre-qualification. Once you're pre-qualified, you are in the database. Thereafter, now you get the opportunity to participate in a tender, and that is the tendering process. And you go through that tendering process, there will be evaluations that are done by organizations like us, and that could be the technical evaluation, and then the commercial, and then finally there is an award. So the award and contracting is a critical part. If you get to that gate, you need to be careful what you're signing for, what you're committing to, so that you can be able to deliver. And then at the end is to ensure that you perform and deliver beyond expectation. If you had committed to deliver 100%, always I encourage that you go beyond the 100% so that you can make the impression, and hence in the next tender you stand a better chance. Thank you very much. If we can go to the next. So this is, I think, our most important, because it's the first gate to starting to participate in a procurement activity. And this is the supplier pre-qualification. Some organizations call it supplier onboarding. And generally, this is a place that we evaluate supplier information to be able to register that supplier in our database and to become an approved supplier. And most of the time, you're pre-qualified for a certain category. So depending on your experience, you get to be pre-qualified in cleaning services, in catering services, in marketing, merchandise services, in advertising, in construction. So we ask for various documents, and you will see it when we go to the next slide. What are the kind of documents that we ask so that you can be able to prepare? This particular area, and is just stay back on that one slide. This particular area, you will find organizations are doing a lot of due diligence. Once you've given us the documentation, we triangulate, are these documents um, genuine? We also start checking, is this organization practicing ethically in the market? So we do a lot of vetting, we do a lot of validation. If you've given us financial statements, we write to your accountant, I mean, to say, did you really audit this firm? Can you confirm? And remember that auditor must be in the registered by the certified public accounting organization. So this is a place that you have to be honest in whatever you're submitting to the organization. Organizations have now many tools to validate if the documentation is accurate, if there is any adverse mention about your organization, and also just confirming if you really submit taxes. We check with KRA because we have that access. That is absolutely true. That is what you do, and then also making sure that you've been managing the regulations of the country, making sure that if you're paying NSSF, if you're paying NHIF, so there's a lot of checks. So this is such an important part for you to do a good job for your organization. We can go to the next slide now. I give you two perspectives because sometimes you're trading as an organization, and I see many organizations on this call today. Sometimes you're also trading as an individual, especially if you're doing a consultancy. I can do a consultancy as Emily To and myself, as me. And also I can do a consultancy if I'm representing Safaricom. So for a company, most important, all companies must be registered. So you should have the certificate of incorporation. I trust all of you are already past that stage. You should have a tax compliance certificate. Tax compliance certificate, this is given every year because every year you return your taxes. If you return them properly, KRA will always give you a tax certificate. Your shareholding structure, of the organization. Shareholding structure is your CR12. Shareholding structure will show Emily has 50% and Frank has 50%. So it shows the composition of that company. Who owns the company? It is very important nowadays to be able to declare who owns these companies. Because remember, part of the fiduciary expectation in the government is that the beneficiary owners of those companies are known so that they are not doing things that are not allowed in the law. And then definitely you should have your company profile. Your company profile, that is something that you must already have even as we speak. Who are you? Yeah. Who are you? If you say, I'm trading in Baringo, who are you? What are you trading? Who are you trading with? What is the competencies in your organization? So company profile is very important. And as you do business, always ensure at the end of the business, you ask for a reference letter to say, you supplied this company, the services were of very good standards, and this is a testimonial that you can carry along even as you submit to into pre-qualification and later to tenders. Other requirements which I had already spoken about are your audited financial statements. Make sure every year you're auditing your finance and you're filing your returns. That is just good business practice. And then if you're doing bigger tenders, you will find they will ask for insurance policies, management policies. How is your resources team being managed? How do you manage your health and safety? How who are the team members in your team? What is their competencies? And all those accreditations that come. If you're a company, you need to make sure that that is what you have already put in place. If you're an individual, then it starts with, who are you? So we check your national ID or your passport. We check if you've been named in any of those any of the scandals. That's why we check the national ID. Professional certification. If you're going for a consultancy, for example, if I'm going for a procurement consultancy, I should show that I have a certificate from Kenya Institute of Supplies and Management. What is the accreditation? If you're going for an auditing job, then you should have a certified public accounting certificate. If you're an engineer, then you should have the engineering certificate that comes from the body. That is a good way to give a testimonial that you have been certified to do that job. And then tax compliance. Individuals have tax compliance. That's why KRA are always saying, return your taxes. Whether you're doing an individual business, every end of the year, because you have a PIN, make returns. If it is nil returns, that is good. Just make your returns. And then your profile. Always have a good profile that can be seen by the organization and can speak about you and your competencies. If you've done some work, always have your references. I want to speak about the special interest groups that some of you may belong. If you're a youth, then your shareholding structure, meaning the owners of the company, should be 100% owned by someone who is 35 years of age. That is how the government have described a youth. So always ensure that that company, for you to fit into the youth, you should be 35 years of age and below. People with disability, you should be already registered with the relevant bodies, and those certificates are readily available. And if you're women in business, then you should have the registration certificate for access to procurement. And most of you already know what we call the AGPO certificate. So for you to participate in those categories, you should have this additional, in addition to the mandatory that I spoke up there. All right, we can progress. I wanted just to reflect back on what I've discussed in terms of the documents, that there are different categories of pre-qualification, and you should assess your company to say, which one do I fit most? A standard company, which has all the documents that I listed, an individual, if you're going for a specific business as you, if you're going for consultancy and professional services, you need that accreditation that I mentioned about. If you're women in business, you will need the mandatory plus that certificate from AGPO. If you're youth, then you need to ensure that you're 35 years and below. And if you're a person with disability, then you should have the certificate from that relevant body. So always be careful as you pre-qualify. You should ask, which category am I competent to fit in? All right, we can move. So let's assume now you've done extremely well, your documentation has been good, and now you're starting to submit and respond to tenders. You've seen it in the newspaper, you've seen it in the website, you've been shortlisted, so it has come directly to you, and you find most organizations are either digitally, they are doing it digitally, like in Safaricom, it is a portal, so you will receive an email for you to be able to submit a tender. What are the critical things that you should be ready even to do a good job? Number one is always to review. If you get a tender, whether it's in the newspaper, it came to your box, or you got it on a website, just review that request for proposal to understand what the clients want. Always research on that client. If it is a Safaricom tender, come to our website, get to understand what is the Safaricom strategy, what are their objectives, how do they work with people, what are the pain areas. You'll always find it on the website. So as you read the request for proposal or the request for quotation, make sure you understand what exactly the client wants. And then number two, review the deliverables. Every tender, you will see what are the deliverables. You should be able to, like, for example, if it is merchandise, if it is marketing merchandise, t-shirts, if it is umbrellas, then you should be able to check to see, do I really understand? Do I have the skill to be able to deliver? So review the deliverables with your team and determine whether your company can meet them. And if you see you are not able to meet, start thinking, can I partner with somebody else so that I can be able to meet that deliverable? Read each of the requested details. So you will find companies will put and say, we need someone with 10 years experience in this. You should be able to read that carefully and respond concisely. Respond to it. Don't tell a lot of stories and then substantiate. You should be able to say, I have Emily in my company with 10 years experience in procurement and has done consultancy in XYZ. Be very concise, be very clear, so that when they read, they are able to understand they're able to read that you are able to understand. Where they have asked for attachments, like for example, if you are asking for, if they are saying there will be construction and you need to have NEMA certificate 2, you should be able to have. If they're asking for NCA certificate 4, you should be able to attach. So don't attach just to say I have attached. Make sure it's the right document and then attach in the right place. And then just the last two, because I've bolded them, because this is what you should do all year round, is always to have your documents ready, from the profile, from the tax compliance, from the testimonials. Let it not be when you receive a tender and then you're running around to get those. Always make sure your documents are aligned all year round. And then urging you that you need to put governance in your organization about people. Make sure your human resource is being managed properly. Make sure that salaries are paid on time. Make sure your recruitment process is transparent. Make sure your health and safety is paramount and it's already on the walls in your organization. Make sure also that people have the tools to work. If you need laptops, because you find now most of the tenders are online, make sure your people are empowered with the right tools. If they have phones, you may need to give them airtime so that they can keep calling to check what is the status of things. And then make sure your processes are documented. Having processes in the mind as a CEO is good, but you need to document so that when you're not in the organization, everything falls properly. How we collect our debt, how we sell, what type of credit terms do we give, how do you engage customers in the market? Make sure you document that. How do you solve human resource grievances? What are the policies around maternity? What are the policies around sick off? So make sure you have your processes properly documented so that your governance is really straight and clean. Don't manage it yourself, because sometimes you're an SME and you're growing, so you tend to know everything and manage it yourself. The checks are signed by you, they are in your drawer. That's not how we should operate. Make sure you have your finance function. Now, moving on to the tendering documentation, just to give you highlights. I know the tender documents will be very clear what you're required to submit, but just to give you some highlights so that you can get it better. Number one, when they ask for a formal cover letter, most organizations say accompany the tender document with a cover letter. Make sure your cover letter is demonstrating your knowledge of the project. If you're being told that you will be putting up a base station site in Baringo. You should be able to determine what are the requirements, how is the area, knowing the area, when will I do it? So be very concise in demonstrating your knowledge of the project. Number two is to be able to describe how you as the organization will solve that situation, how you will allocate people, how you have already done it before, just demonstrate that. And then number two, immediately after the cover letter is usually an executive summary. Remember, sometimes people are busy. Your tender document could be 100 plus pages. People may miss some things, but the executive summary will summarize generally what you have proposed. And this will lean a lot about how you intend to address the specified needs. So you should be very on the high level, just say, this is what I will do. This is how I intend to resource the project. This is how I intend to manage the project. And then also just elements that your competitors may not have. Every organization has a competitive edge. Always ensure to put a sound on your competitive edge. For example, if you are in the business of cleaning and you have been cleaning embassies, for example, that is your competitive edge. Not everybody is cleaning embassies. So you should be able to bring that out very clearly. If you are in merchandise and you're able to deliver within 24 hours whenever you're given an order, that is your competitive edge. Make sure you put that very clear so that the organization can see over and above what they have requested. This is the additional value that you can give. Number three is your implementation plan. Make sure it is also concise. It covers a complete strategy on how you will do it and the deliverables. So you have your timelines. I'll deliver in 6 months, and in every month, this is what I will have done. So you show outcomes of the different milestones that you will have, and then the team that you will assign to the project. Remember, the client, like Safaricom, wants the best of the best. So make sure you are detailing very strong experience in the team that you are seconding to the project, and make sure you bring that out even as you detail your implementation plan. As always, blow your trumpet by bringing out references of proven work that you have done in the category. If you have supplied other organizations that same service, make sure those your references speak about you and the performance during your delivery. And then the last one is the commercial terms. What we've noted, while tenders are evaluated at commercial, technical is also very important. Ensure not to undercut yourself. You're here to do business, but also at the same time, make sure that you do not overquote yourself. So make sure you understand your costs drivers. If it is about people, just check how much salaries you pay, what are the operating costs, so that you define your costs very well and you're able to make a margin at the end of this process. Make sure your payment terms are also favorable. You remember, tender documents will always state the payment terms. Like Safaricom, if it is local purchase, you'll find payment terms are 60 days. Some organizations have put 90 days. Some organizations 120 days. Make sure you read what is in the tender and then you align to it. Most of the time, what if you do not align, it becomes a disqualifying place. So make sure that you do. And then also ensure, if you need to ask for any support from the organization, make sure you call it out that these are my responsibilities, but this is also what I expect that you will meet us at delivery. For example, if you need to clean the offices at 7 a.m., then you'll be asking that you need your people to be given access at 6 a.m. So make sure you call out so that it is already understood even at the tendering stage. All right. And successfully you've gone through tendering and you have been awarded. These are the key elements that you need to think about when you've been given an award. Organizations will send you an award letter. They will already have negotiated with you severally, so they've called you in meetings, they have said adjust this, and now you have your final position. Always be very clear at the end, what is my final position, so that when the award letter comes, if you need to seek clarification, if there's anything that doesn't seem correct as what you agreed, you can seek clarification. And then number
Mm.
two, ensure that you give
Sawa.
timely,
Chuma zilikuwa
timely acceptance letter. They say
Mm.
give it within 3 days. Make sure.
Wow.
I think there's someone who is muted. If they can mute, please. All right. Make sure that you give your acceptance letters timely. Some organizations penalize you for not giving the timely acceptance letters. And then make sure the acceptance letter is in the format that is stipulated. You'll find they say send it in your letterhead and it is signed and stamped. Those are critical steps that you need to follow each of them without missing. Once you've submitted your letter of acceptance, you will already be given a contract to look at. So review all the clauses. Review the clauses about termination. Review the clause about performance. Review the clause about delivery. Review the clause about payment terms. When will payment terms be? So that you make sure it aligns with the discussions you've had. If you're not, if you don't have that knowledge, always seek the input from your commercial lawyer, but do not overcomplicate the matter so that the lawyer can see if there's any risk that you are going into. And then at the end, make sure you sign your contract timely. It is important to have a signed contract. Should there be any issues between yourself and the buying organization, you have a contract. The contract can speak in any court of law. The contract can speak in any arbitration. So make sure you sign the contract in a timely manner. And then now you go to performance. In the contract, you will find that there is a section for performance standard. What time should you clean the building? How should you clean the building? How many people should be available to clean? And if it is merchandise, is what type of material is expected? What is the size of the t-shirt? What is the fading, so make sure that you understand the performance standard, because this is how you will be measured at the end. And then make sure that you plan for timely delivery. If you had said 60 days, let it be 60 days. In fact, what I recommend is that you deliver ahead of schedule, because you want to make sure that the buying organization is happy and they can consider you in another tender. Make sure you assign the right teams. I cannot overemphasize this. Once you won the contract, do not fade out from this delivery. Make sure the team that you promised in the tender is the team that you are assigning. And then if you see any slag of any of the team members, you should be able to replace so that the buying organization can receive the services in a high quality manner. All right. So going to the last slide, which is always important, because once you have the contract, you start delivering. This will determine whether they will give you the next tender, whether they will renew your contract. So it's important that your performance management is very tight and is of you are present yourself to do it. So number one, look at your obligations management. It comes from understanding the performance standard. What is expected of you? When is it expected? And what is the quality of the expectation? Make sure you understand and you keep in touch with the buying organization to make sure that you've understood the obligations and you're giving feedback to the right people. Meetings which are sometimes very strategic, maybe you need to meet the CEO of the buying organization, or the general managers, or you meet the operations team. Make sure the right team members from your organization is present. Yeah, if it is strategic meetings and you are the one that holds a strategy, make sure you're present. Make sure you're present, you're able to answer the questions with your technical teams. Sometimes you go into a meeting and they want to understand the generator that you supplied, why is it not performing to the number of hours that you stated? And your technical person will be able to support you to answer that concisely and accurately. And then operations now, making sure that the things that are supposed to be done are being done. If there's a question about why office XY was not cleaned on this time, it's good to have your people of operations, people who check, people who have a checklist. So those meetings are super important. Make sure you take minutes, make sure you follow on the actions from the minutes. The next one is the relationship management. Remember, people work with people that they are familiar with. So do not work with documents only. Make sure you're present yourself to engage. Come and engage Emily, come and engage the engineer, come and engage, make sure you engage the people who are important for that contract. And in that way, sometimes even without formal meetings, you get to understand whether you're doing a good job or you're not doing a good job, or what areas you need to improve. So relationship management is super important. Make it key for your organization. Number four is financial management. When you start delivering, now you are putting in your money to give the service that you tendered for. You're putting in your money to supply the goods that you tendered for. You're putting in your money to share your experience. Make sure that whatever price you quoted for is still making you a margin, is still making you profit. I believe you're in the business of making profit. So make sure you manage your operations so that you manage costs to the minimum. If you need financing with organizations like banks and anybody else, microcredit organization, make sure you have a clear memorandum of understanding with those organizations so that you can negotiate your rates for borrowing, you can negotiate your time for paying back, you can negotiate even the cost of money. So make sure your financial management, and make sure that even as you continue to deliver, you're keeping your books properly so that when audit is done by your accountant, you'll be able to have clean records at the end of it. Make sure you're paying your taxes, make sure that you meet the timeline so that you're not penalized. Those are costs that you don't need to incur. So make sure your financial management is done properly. Whether you're doing it yourself or you have an accountant, make sure that you are in touch and you understand your finances so that at every month you can close and say, was it a great month or did I make losses? And if I made losses, what are the issues so that you can manage it? So that is super important. And then embedding health and safety. This is making sure that your team have the right protective gear. The team is skilled to do some of the jobs. Like if you're doing an electrical job, do not just assign somebody because they are available. Make sure that person has gone through the training and is certified. So make sure if your drivers are on the road, they are buckling up their safety belt. They are not picking calls when they are driving. So those are some of the things that you need to embed. And then also making sure that your staff have medical cover, so that should there be an eventuality, whether they are sick, there's an accident, they should be sorted, they should be helped. There should be a hospital which you've negotiated. If you are in Turkana and you don't need a big medical, but you already should negotiate with a clinic near you and say, if my staff is injured, if my staff is sick, they can come for medical. And obviously, just to make sure that your NHIF is up to date. You've seen NHIF is now much better than before, and your staff can actually get the treatment. And then last one is the regulatory compliance. Regulatory compliance cut across your taxes. Make sure you return your taxes properly. Make sure that you pay salaries on the time that you put in the contract of employees. Make sure that you pay NSSF, you pay NHI, you have your medical structure. So make sure that you are operating as a good organization, making sure that you are clear with the law and doing it properly. Even when you talk about managing people, do people get maternity days as stipulated by the government? Do people get sick off? Are there places for staff to speak to you, to hear their grievances? Is there a process for disciplinary? How do you manage termination of staff? So make sure that you have put that very clear in the organization, and there are people who are managing. If it is a big organization, if it is yourself, then make sure every now and then you're checking with experts in those areas to make sure that you're doing the right job. All right. I think that was like a very long conversation. Do I believe this is the last slide? All right. Good. So having spoken a lot for those many minutes, I'm happy if we can now engage, take questions, and if you can help me, if there are already questions on the floor, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Emily, for that very insightful session. I can already see Judge Mwangi's hand is up. Judge, go ahead and unmute yourself and shoot your question.
Hello. Am I clearly?
Hi, George.
Yes, George.
Hi,
Yeah,
everybody.
we can hear you.
Thank you, Emma, for that wonderful presentation as regards this pertinent question of diversity inclusion. And this is to mean those
Hi, George. We lost you quite there a bit. Okay, as we wait for George to come back, feel free to put your questions on the chat box. I can see Zani's hand up. Go ahead, Zani, and mute yourself and speak up.
Mhm. Hello, good morning.
Good
Morning.
morning.
I thank you for the good presentation. Mine is to congratulate you that you have done a nice job. You have made us to understand things easily. And now we can do things without much problem. Really, what you have given us is to be taken seriously. But what I would like to ask is, sometimes we have some major problem in finance. That is the major problem I've been asking. Where do we go for the assistance? Kindly tell us.
Okay, that's a very good question, and I know Invest in Africa have a way of allowing you to access finance. So this is what we have understood finance to be a very big issue, especially now you have a contract you cannot supply. So what we've done is we have talked to most of the banks in Kenya now, from the large to the small, and at Safaricom we have kind of established some agreements on how our suppliers can get finance. So that is at Safaricom. But what we're looking at is to grow that beyond. And I know Invest in Africa already have some memorandum of understanding with some of the funding organization. I would recommend, number one, if you can go into a bank, and the bank that you bank with, you establish a relationship, and then you ask for financing. And let me tell you, banks are able to finance, and now they are looking for people to finance. If you already have an order, which is a purchase order, they can be able to finance you based on that order. They can also be able to finance you based on an invoice. If you have already supplied and you have an invoice, if you take your contract and the invoice, the bank can review and they should be able to fund you. So that is one. Number two is, even as you continue with the business, try and put away money for savings. And that savings, you can put it in a circle. I always say circles are very, very easy to finance, because once you put in your shares, you can borrow 3 times, and some circles now have opened 5 times. So that's another way of financing. Number three, another way of financing is, if your business is growing and you may need to grow the business, and you can put in a share, you can sell out some of your shares, but you need to do it properly with a lawyer, so that the shareholding is very clear. The benefit of the new shareholder who has put in money is also very clear, and the responsibilities are clear. I don't know whether Invest in Africa wants to add how you have helped your SMEs to access financing.
Yes, thank you, Emily. On the call, we have Jean. Jean, welcome. You can share a bit about our access to finance pillar.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Emily. Emily has really provided some light on how you can gain finance to finance the tender opportunities that you win with the different corporates. But besides that, at Invest in Africa, on our platform, biashara.now, most of you are members, you can actually make your request for finance based off of the contracts or the tenders that you win. So what you need to do is to log into the platform. If you're not a member, there is a link on the chat box for you to join. And then you put in your request for finance once you're already logged in. And what we usually do is we review the application and then we link you to the potential financier who we feel would best fit your needs. So that's what we do. And that's another avenue for you to get the finance that you're looking for. In case you already have such a contract, you can reach out to us and we'll be able to assist you. Thank you. Back to you, Lim.
Thank you, Jean, for that. I can see already another hand up, but before we take that, I can see Nabangi's question on the chat box. He's asking CR12 versus CR13. Can either of these be used in place of the other? Emily?
I'm trying to see what CR13 is. So for shareholding structure, CR12 is what is critical. So we go for CR12. So they don't replace each other. CR12 is what is required. Hope Nambangi Sudi.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Emily, for that. There's another question by George, and he's asking, I wanted to know exactly, as an organization, Amy, how do you handle joint venture operation for farms which are undercapacitated in the spirit of diversity and inclusion subject?
Okay. So and this is my understanding of the question. If you're going to bid and you want to bid as a joint venture, how do we handle that? So, number one, our tenders allow joint ventures, also allow subcontracting, and you will always see that in the tender conditions. What we ask for is that if you're going to have a joint venture, it has to be properly signed with a lawyer. So you send us together with your bid bond, with your tender, the joint venture contract, so that it is very clear that Emily and John are coming into a joint contract, that the responsibilities of the two organizations, and this is how they will work together, and this is how they will receive the money. So we agree to that, but make sure it is done properly with a lawyer and it is registered. Okay.
Okay, thank you for that, Emily. I can see Zani's hand up. I'm not sure whether it's a new hand or an old hand. Zani? Okay, I presume that was an old one. So on the registration, we have a couple of questions, Emily. One of them, someone is asking, how can SMEs increase their marketing strategies and expand their networking?
Okay, that's a very good question. Expanding your networking, being here is already expanding your networking. Being in sessions like this, if you attend a conference, you're already networking. To be in Invest in Africa platform is a great platform because you find organizations like Safaricom and others are in the platform and they will share the tenders in there. So you will see. You'll also find like-minded organizations like yourself. If you're in the marketing space, you will see vendors in the marketing space and you can share your knowledge. So networking is a formula that you're already doing if you're already in this platform. That's number one. Number two is, how do you increase your market? How do you grow your business? Yeah. So always, and it's good, whether it is you or the person you have employed, you need to have someone who is deliberately doing market development, looking at the market and saying, where do I target? And I can take an example. If I'm in Eldoret and I say my market is in Eldoret, I start looking at what is the population in Eldoret. What are the organizations that work in Eldoret so that I can supply them? And I have my person reaching out to those people, or myself, if I'm the one doing the market development, reaching out. Remember, every morning you should have someone going to the market to look for business. They start with the newspapers to see if there are any tenders. They go online into the organization, and also people who work out there. That is one. Number two is social presence. And I think Frank at the beginning said, please share your websites. You know, right now, digital is what is driving many things. You've seen even the government, even from the way they are giving the loans, they are giving through a digital platform. You've seen the Women Enterprise Fund has gone to the platform. Everything is in the platform. E-Citizen is in the platform. So you need to have a website, a good website, which is updated. And there are young people who can do that for you. So you don't say, how do I do it? And in that website, you can always make sure that you update it. Last one is also to be in social media. Creating a Facebook page, I think, is easy. Creating Instagram, I think it is easy. Stepping up to LinkedIn, I think it is easy. If you have the right person to do it for you, and then now telling the stories every day. What am I doing today? What am I doing tomorrow? What am I doing next day? What do customers, if they want to buy things from you, how do they get in touch with you? So you need to be present. Don't worry, long time you could only be present in the newspapers and in TV, but it is very expensive. But if you are available on social media, you have your website, your person is doing door to door visiting the customers. That is how you grow your business. And then, of course, being in Invest in Africa platform, it's a great place to be.
Indeed. Thank you, Emily, for that. And yeah, take up the challenge to be on all digital platforms. That way you are able to look for or rather access opportunities that are there. I can see Jean has already posted how you can be able to access finance through our platform. And in case you need further assistance on that, she has posted her contacts as well as her email. Feel free to do so. I can see Felix is asking, what measures can organizations take to ensure that sensitive data is protected during the procurement process, especially when dealing with third-party vendors? That's a good question.
That's a very good question. That's a very
Yeah.
good question because stealing of ideas has become the general norm, right? So this is what we recommend, and there's a big section that we have signed to. But before you share any information, I think it is good to sign a non-disclosure agreement. A non-disclosure agreement is important because once you sign and somebody is actually releasing the data that you're giving them or is using it in another way, that can be used in a court and it can be bad. So that is one. Number two also is to make sure that the people who have the information are the right people who should have the information. Yeah? Don't go into a club and you're speaking about this my great idea that I'm about to develop and there are people around you who are listening. Yeah? Make sure that you share the information only to the people who need to. And then also, you know, I know we share a lot of information on WhatsApp, and WhatsApp, somebody else is forwarding it to. So make sure even how you share that information. If you feel like it is sensitive information, don't share it in some platforms because people will forward it, people will screenshot it, people will, there are many ways that people will spread that information. And Invest in Africa, please feel free to add.
Thank you, Emily. I think you've covered that very well. And data is the gold of the digital age, and you ought to protect it at all costs. So I can already see Samuel is saying that they do excellent website for businesses and organizations, and he's already posted their website there, www.qualitybrands.co.ke. In case you need such services, please feel free to reach out to him. I'll take another question from the registration link that says, how do you overcome delayed payments for goods delivered to a public organization?
I know what is happening, and we hear a lot from our suppliers. There's a lot of delay. in terms of payment. And we know, I think, what is happening. The money maybe is not getting to the right organization. If money is leaving national to the to the counties, is not leaving on time. um I don't think there's any secret. I think it's just to make sure that you are in the face of that finance manager so that they can pay you. Yeah. Where there's delay, go to them and understand what is the delay, how long is it delaying, and then also to say, this is my challenge as we continue that with this delay. So I think it's just to make sure that you have that conversations throughout. In private organizations like Safaricom, BAT, Unilever, you find the payment terms are more structured. If there's a delay, is maybe there's a paperwork issue that you need to just correct. So I don't think there's any really secret unless anybody in the call can share with us. But I think it's just to keep in touch with those organizations and to follow up your payment, to also be resilient at following. Don't follow today and then the next time you're following is 2 months from now. Follow every day, follow every day. Knock and the door will be opened. So make sure you do that way.
Absolutely, and I agree with you. And then on top of that, let us find more information about their payment procedures as well. Let it be clear on the word go so that you're not stuck as a business waiting for a payment and you have another colliding order, and then you become frustrated and stranded in the middle. Um, Another question we have is explain the importance of a procurement policy and how do we go about preparing one?
Okay, okay. Um, so I must say procurement policy is super important. It's part of your governance document that you should have in place. And as you start, think about maybe a couple of things around that policy. How do you create transparency? How do you prepare a level playground, and also making sure that the person doing procurement is actually trained. All of us, I know, we buy in our own homes, we buy everywhere, but not everybody has the right training to be able to run the process so that they can support you in terms of looking at what are the risks. Yeah, if I'm buying from an organization in China, what are the risks that I'm going to experience? If I'm going to import things, what are the requirements for importation? So make sure that you have the right person heading your procurement. And remember, sometimes you don't need to have that person in your organization. There are people now who are running consultancies and can run for you the procurement department. All you need to do is to stay close to the process so that you're clear. To prepare your policy, it is good that you go to the PPRA website and you will see they have guidelines on how procurement should be done. You can also get to, if you want to get more details, I think if you speak to Invest in Africa, they have the right skilled person to come and take you through what you should do to make sure that you have a good policy in place. And they can always reach out to us and we can support. We can even prepare a specific session where we take you through how to prepare your procurement policy and then how to implement. Because having a policy is good, but now you need to implement to make sure that you're actually doing the right thing. But as a principal, if you have a buying organization, make sure you're not single sourcing. Make sure you're not buying from Emily only. Always make sure you issue a tender, however small it is. And then make sure conflict of interest. Don't deal with yourselves. Don't have your brothers, your relatives, your everybody, your friends supplying. Make sure it's above board. Yeah, because when you have conflict of interest, it clouds your decision. You're thinking, how am I going to tell them that they did not get, even though they are expensive? Let me just buy from them because of XYZ. Just remove that conflict of interest. Do not single source, and then make sure the process is transparent.
Okay, thank you for that, Emily. Indeed, that is very insightful. And another question is, there are SMEs that are startups, or rather, they are beginning to supply. Now, they're asking how can they be able to position themselves. Peradventure they don't have prior commercial references. How do they position themselves to win a procurement opportunity to a corporate buyer?
Yeah, that's a very regular question that I get. Um, so I always say start somewhere. No, you have to start small. Start small. If I have my company in Kericho and I'm taking that's where I come from. I start from Kericho. This is my business. I'm doing cleaning. I start cleaning for a supermarket. I clean for a small organization. Before I know it, I'm cleaning for the from the county. I'm starting to clean and I'm saying, actually, I can come in the whole of Rift Valley, I can clean for you. Before you know it, I can actually set up in Nairobi. So you have to start small. That's number one. Number two is if you can work the way we were saying, if you can have a joint venture, like I can have a joint venture with a national cleaning company so that even as we clean together, they are subcontracting me to clean for them in Kericho. And as I clean, they are giving me a reference letter that actually I'm cleaning from in Kericho on their behalf. Before you know it, I have left the subcontractor, now I'm the main contractor. That is how we have grown the businesses. And I can give you an example. Like in Safaricom, when we were looking for women to come and do fiber services, it was a male dominated area. Only men organization are the ones that were doing that work. So what we did was to speak to the male organization to say, can you subcontract these women? And they were subcontracted and they were given like 1 kilometer. They were able to prove themselves. 2 kilometers, they were able to prove themselves. Within a period of 2 years, these women had done 100+ kilometers. Hence, they could come to Safaricom now directly. But they already now had reference letters from these organizations that had subcontracted them. So you can start by getting subcontracted and then you can start small and then build that experience. It's like work. When you come out of the university, you don't have experience, but you do an internship, you already have experience. You extend your internship, your experience grows. You have a junior role, you start growing like that. So start small and then grow.
Indeed, and we are not to despise the days of humble beginnings. Thank you, Emily, for that. Yeah, and I can see another question that is in line with that. So, how does a startup successfully bid up against well-established businesses? And does having an AGPO certification make a difference?
Yes, that AGPO certificate makes a huge difference. And let me start it from the context of the government. The government is very clear that 30% of spend will be given to that category of suppliers. And last week I had a lot of engagement in IFC where I met KenGen, for example. And it's very clear 30% is what you should get if you have that certificate. It could be 30% among many of you, but 30% will go to that category. So that AGPO is very important. Number two, AGPO is also important for private organizations like us. For us to put you in the category of women in business, you should have that certificate. Without such a certificate, then you go into the general. So number two, what does that, once you're put in that category, there are preferential treatment in that category. The 30% spent is that is like spend reservation. You will find organizations like ours, we also have preferential treatment at evaluation where we give you additional marks because you are a woman in business and you have the AGPO certificate. So it's important. It's super important. You should have it with you and you should use it all the time. So how can you compete in categories with, let's call them Titan suppliers? Our recommendation has always been go into a merger. It is small Emily, but there's also small Lim. There is also small Frank. If we come together, we start becoming a force to reckon with. And you just make sure that you have that joint venture that is signed and it is registered. And go for capabilities. You look at what do you have and what are you lacking. What you're lacking is why I'm getting lean. What I'm lacking more is why I'm getting frank. Once we come, the three of us, we start making a force to reckon with. You may not win your first one, but I can assure you, you keep consistent by your second and third, you will win as long as you're giving a clean and good bid that shows the competencies and also is priced properly.
Wow, thank you, Emily. That is really insightful. And maybe a last question from the registration link is up. What are the best practices to carry out in order to win international contracts? Mhm,
That's a very hard question.
mhm,
So the best practices, number one, is to properly set up. Like if you're going to
mhm.
export avocados, make sure you have the right certification to export avocados. Or if you're going to buy things from China, make sure that all those IDF, all those declarations and everything is properly. So make sure you're properly set up. That would be like number one. Number two, just make sure your processes are also documented. When you start dealing with international business, there are methodologies and there are also expectations. And they will be asking, give us this. If they say, give me a document how you manage your health and safety, you should be able to have it. So make sure you're properly documented. Make sure you also register with some of these, what do I call it, international business organizations that can give you more knowledge to do a good job when you are bidding for that tender and you're supplying those services. Lim, please feel free to add more.
Thank you, Emily. I think what I can add on that is just be able to do your homework well in terms of researching your country that you're intending to export to. Find out what are some of the rather restrictions or things that you should be able to abide by. I've found a site called International Trade Center to be very helpful in terms of researching the export markets. So make sure you do your homework, find out the right information, and as Emily has said, make sure you are legally compliant. That really helps you to be on the cutting edge as well. I can see Felix on the chat box saying, thank you so much, Emily, for that insight on data protection. If any organization requires assistance with data protection concerns, please feel free to reach out or contact them through the email that has been provided on the chat box. Thank you, Felix, for that. I don't know if we still have any more questions. Feel free to shoot your hand up. We still have a few more minutes. Seems like Nabangi has a question on matters legal compliance. Go ahead and ask your question. Okay, I think he's giving a referral. On matters legal compliance, check out Dorian Associates Limited. Okay. This is a good opportunity for you to also network when we come to the webinars. When we're beginning, as we began, Frank said, feel free to put your information on the chat box. You never know who is looking for assistance. You can actually get business from this call. Okay, I think at this point we are good to go. Thank you very much for participating. And at this point, I'd like to welcome Jean to move a vote of thanks. Before that, I can see Zani's hand up again. I'm not sure if you want to ask a new question. Okay. Okay, so let's begin with Felix. I can see your hand up. Go ahead. Felix, your hand is up. Frank, your hand is up as well. And Zani.
Okay, I'm saying
Yes.
I have an insurance agency. I'm doing marketing now. If anybody is looking for insurance, kindly contact me.
Thank you. Thank you, Zani. That is well noted. You see, he's been able to just go ahead and grab the opportunity to talk about his business. Thank you, Zani, for that. Okay, Frank.
All right, thank you so much, Lim. Thank you so much, Emily. What I wanted to share as a final, just closeout, is how SMEs will be able just to access some of these opportunities. So on Biashara.now, we have what we call the Biashara.now tender space, which is where we get these opportunities from Safaricom and we post them to our SMEs on the platform. So the opportunities are accessible to all our members who are on the Biashara.now platform. And then the guidance on how to apply for the opportunities are as per guidelines from Safaricom. So you can go on to, we currently have some opportunities currently running. So you can just check out the Biashara.now tender space. I've posted the link on the chat box, and then you can be able just to see, or now you can be able to apply. So it's a good time to put the theory that you've already gone through into practice. If you have any challenges, you know who to reach out to. So just visit the Biashara.now platform, and then you'll be able to see the opportunities. If you have any challenges, we are available just to connect and be able to support you. So thank you so much. I'd like to take it back to Jean to move our vote of thanks. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you so much, team, the Invest in Africa team. Emily, we are so grateful and so indebted to you for the great presentation that you have made today, and also for just taking the time to address the different questions that the SMEs have in regards to procurement. Your sharing has been so invaluable to us, and we look forward to working together with you just to be able to grow these SMEs and make sure that they're able to win the different opportunities that are out there for them. So we are very grateful. And thank you to everyone who has joined today's session. We are so grateful. Thank you for engaging and interacting with our speaker of the day. Thank you for making the session a success. We are very grateful. And we are going to share a feedback link in the chat box. Please share your feedback on the session, as this helps us to improve and to tailor make our sessions to your concerns and your needs. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you to the Invest in Africa team for the great facilitation of the session. Please, as you log out from the session, just share your feedback on the feedback link that's being shared shortly. And have a good day, everyone. Thank you.